You are saying that with technical, you have to combine fundamentals, you have to combine macro factors, and you have to have bigger picture in mind.
See, that is my recipe for my dish, right? You have to build your own recipe. I think watching the news is a big mistake. You know, when markets are cheaper, investing starts to work. When markets are expensive, trading works. A little bit of complexity in the market is sold as the holy grail in a way. Stock markets, more than many other things, are very cyclical. What worked today will not work tomorrow, but will work day after tomorrow or like 1 week later. Whatever twisted way you figure out to buy cryptos and like trade in NFTs and all of that, if it were to work out for you and you make a lot of money doing that, then somebody will go after you.
So you started investing at an age of 17. Kaise? How?
So I used to work for a call center back then. I had started working early, had stopped education. Since I worked in the night, the UK shift, 5 p.m. to 1 a.m., I had plenty of time. I was also lucky in having a brother, friends, colleagues who were in the trading ecosystem back then. And it kind of like made it easier for me to enter the world of trading. Yeah.
So when you started trading, क्या strategies थी जो आप follow करते थे?
कुछ भी नहीं
Starting.
थी. Huh?
Starting.
Nothing was there. It used to be more like I had heard that a friend bought something at 10 rupees and sold it at 20. So the endeavor was to find something at 10 rupees and sell it at 20. There was no methodology, no research, none of that. If I remember correctly, there used to be a software company called Marsoft. I'm talking maybe early 2000s. It used to trade at 4 rupees. That's probably one of the first few shares I bought. I got it at 4 rupees and luckily it went to like 10 or 15. Not because of what research I did, but just out of like stupid luck. It went to zero, I think, beyond that. But when I watched it go up so quickly, it got me very intrigued and there began the trading journey.
Research करना कब start किया? And when did you found your process?
So that process has been changing constantly. I would say in the very early years, in the first 4, 5, 6 years of trading, I started believing that technical analysis works. Okay, so I would read books about candlesticks, about wave theory, about Fibonacci numbers, and I would try and apply them to my trading. What I realized very late, I should have realized earlier, is when you look back at data, when you try and backtest any strategy, it's very easy to nudge a strategy left and right and kind of curve fit it to think that it works. Technical analysis is much like that. It follows the premise that patterns which have occurred in the past will probably recur again. And it took me a long time to wane away from that, but I spent many years on that. So initially I began with the technical analysis thing.
You made money?
So it used to be cycles of, making money for, see, if you catch a trend, a bear trend or a bull trend, technical analysis makes money, right? Because
Absolutely.
It's quite a lagging indicator, if I might say. When markets get choppy or when there are consecutive trend reversals, it eats away the money very quickly as well. So what works is not what works in isolation. What works is what works in underlying conditions.
Relativity.
Correct. So it worked when markets were trending. It lost the money when markets were volatile and choppy. So it would be like a cycle of 1 year where you make money every month, and then there would be 2 months where you would lose a lot of money very quickly. And the thing with every trader is when you're making money, it's small increments, but when you're losing money, it happens much faster. So I had that cycle happen to me maybe like 2-3 times. I would say all the way up until I was maybe 20-21. I would save money from my work, from other places, you get paid less salary also, right? Like forget today's salaries. I'm talking about like 17-18 year back salary, and not not salary for a highly skilled professional, but somebody working a very low end job at a call center earning a small wage. So 3-4 साल हो गया, saved money, lost it after 1 year, saved money, lost it after 1 year.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was the first phase.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Then post technical analysis. Then
Post technical analysis, there was this course called CQF. It was about quantitative finance. So you realize that trend following does not work necessarily. So then you start looking at things like mean regression and correlation and how to do pair trading. I used to, for a long time, try to run strategies which would work on the correlation in between Indian markets and say Hang Seng. Hang Seng in India used to be really correlated back then.
so did it help you make money?
A little bit. I think if you ran correlation, see, the world has gotten increasingly globalized in the last decade. Maybe it started happening 15-20 years ago, but in the time frame that I'm talking, say 10-11 years ago, there was a certain correlation even on an intraday basis between what happened in FTSE when it opened at 130, what happened when you track Dow futures and Hang Seng. I think if I remember correctly, Nifty Hang Seng were fairly correlated. Nifty Dow futures were very correlated. So that was the next phase of trading, where you were playing on, if something if an event occurred, you would bet on the prices regressing to the mean. You would do correlation stuff, pair trading. You would see what is the delta of a stock
Fancy
versus
stuff.
not fancy stuff. I mean, see, the fancier it sounds in stock market, generally the stupider it is. So I try to do simple stuff as much as possible. This might sound fancy, but when you implement it, it's really simple stuff. This again lasted a few years. It worked better than technical analysis, but then again did not work in isolation. I would say the next phase after another few years of doing this was more fundamental analysis. Also, by then I had enough money to, nobody ever has enough money, but I had reasonable enough money to fundamentally be able to allocate to a company and do well if the company went up 20%, in a year or in 2 years consecutively. See, Anand, when I started, the capital was so little that making 20% was nothing, right? I had to find opportunities where 100 could become 200. That was not out of a desire, but more out of a necessity because the corpus was so tiny. So fundamental again worked for a few years. You get dissuaded by whatever is happening in your life at the moment. And while fundamental worked for a few years, you had that bear run after that, right? You had big corrections in the market.
And sluggish period.
Correct. And then it stops working. Immaterial of what research you've done, what analysis you have done, it does not work at that point. So then you come to this realization that nothing really works in isolation. It's also a question if something truly works or does not work, or is it placebo and your mind tells you it's working. But now I think a combination of all that I mentioned is in some ways what I incorporate, along with weighing sentiment in the market. Even now, I don't know if it truly works or not, but things have not been the worst historically for me in the trading realm. So I'm hoping at some level a combination of everything works.
So what I can truly say from your journey is कि आप हमेशा market के according you kept changing yourself as well. What do you think next 10 years में क्या change हो सकता है market में?
मुझे लगता है we're entering a very different phase from what we have witnessed in the last decade plus. In the last 10-20 years, the Nifty has gone up on average 11%. That to me is extremely good. The ecosystem was so ripe with opportunities that everybody did well, right? Like a vast majority of, I wouldn't say everybody, but people who are disciplined enough to, diversify, not borrow and trade, not leverage, trade with stops, and put in some amount of work. A lot of them have done well, exceedingly well. Hence, you hear stories like, Junjunwala and Damani and all these like really big traders and investors who have come out of India. Same with the US, Warren Buffett and all these people who did really well in these last few decades. I don't think that same way of investing will work in the next 10, 20, 30 years. Market has gotten more efficient today. And I think the number of opportunities where you find something cheap, invest in it, and make 5, 10 times the returns, those opportunities will be harder to come by.
So what's next?
I don't know. I think sluggish markets, in my opinion, because of how expensive everything is today. We have priced in companies today with the assumption that there will be 10 years of growth, and we are pricing them today like the 10 years have already occurred. When you look at many companies, there are chemical companies trading at 100 times. There are power companies trading at 500 times. And I'm not talking about exceptions to the rule, but I'm talking about many companies like this. Generally, when you go back in history, things like that are not very sustainable. I personally hope that when things correct and become more rational, they do not happen drastically. I would much rather prefer a market which goes down 1% every day, or 10% every year, much more than something where it falls 30% in a day. Actually, I would say that is fair on both sides. I don't like when it goes up 30%. I don't like when it comes down 30%.
Slow and steady.
Whenever things get chaotic in terms of price action to that extent, many people get burned in the market, but more so the retail small investors. And I don't think that is good for the ecosystem. The markets are thriving today to a certain extent because ever since the pandemic, when that crash happened, a lot of retail has come in. And for the first time in a long time, retail has actually made money. When you go back in time, your grandfather, not in your household maybe because of where you're from, but if you're like a South Indian boy, or if you're from a background which is more, how do I say it, not business oriented, but education oriented, you've all grown up with stories about how stock markets
Gambling
are
and
bad
stock
and
market.
gambling and all that. That narrative will only change when enough people make money. Investing will become mainstream when those stories are replaced with, my father made 10% a year for a 30-year journey, and he did really well in life. So I hope for that reason these dramatic ups and downs do not happen. And the onus is on all of us to do reasonable things in the market, but at some levels also on the people managing our monetary policy and our government to make sure these big spikes and troughs don't happen. Like, I could give you an example right now, considering where inflation seems to be. I think interest rates in India should have been a lot higher a long time ago. That slowly shocking the system probably prevents a big shock from happening down the road. Yeah.
So you mean to say that जो Fed अभी बढ़ा रही है interest rate, and they gave a hawkish view that instead of increasing it by 50 bips, they might even increase it by 70 bips.
Yeah.
That's a good way to deal with it.
With inflation, I don't think we have many tools. If inflation is 10%, the only way to contain it is for the interest rates to be 11 or 12%. Right?
Absolutely.
Cost of capital has to become more expensive. People say inflation in India is 6% today. To me, living in India, it feels like a lot higher. Like it on the ground, you look at steel prices, they're up 70, 80%. Crude is up 100%.
Every commodity is up.
Yeah, everything is up, right? Like, I think even real estate to a certain extent, it might not have done well in the last decade, but it has done exceedingly well in the last 1-2 years. There is but a point of time, like I'll give you the example of auto companies today. Let's take a Toyota Fortuner car, for example, right? I don't know what the price of the car was 5 years ago, but if the cost of steel, if the cost of aluminium, if the cost of everything required to make the car continues to go up, and the producer of the car continues to pass on those price hikes, It might be at 50 lakh rupees today. It might have gone up all the way to 50 lakh rupees. But the question is, will people still buy it at 60 lakh rupees or at 70 lakh rupees? There will be that point where that equilibrium will go away. You can only pass on increases in the cost up until a certain point, and right now people are able to absorb it in the ecosystem, but at some point it will stop.
Very interesting point.
Yeah. I would much rather not see that day and see smaller shocks today which try and circumvent that day from ever occurring. Yeah.
Very interesting point. You even spoke about retailers and retail investors. So retailers actually made money in last 3 years.
Ever since that pandemic low, what did Nifty fall to? 8,000, right?
7,500. The bottom.
Everybody who started coming into the market, and a lot of people have, if they invested and did not do anything stupid, they made money.
They made money. So I would like you to list down 3 biggest mistakes which you made and you think that retailers are still making. Or some of them are still making.
Forget retailers, even I am still making.
So
there are
3 mistakes.
There are many mistakes that you know are mistakes, but sometimes you can't help yourself. I think watching the news is a big mistake.
Why?
I think
love to be updated, no?
Yeah, but the problem is ना आजकल news में news कम होता है and opinions ज़्यादा होती है, right? So when I turn on a TV channel today to watch the news, whatever it might be, right? You always have people with ideas and strategies and suggestions and all of that. I don't know how, see, a lot of these people are my friends and I know them and all of that. So I would hate to be critical or skeptical of something that I'm not an expert at, but hearing 100 people say 100 different things you should do every day kind of subconsciously nudges your mind to think in a certain way. If you hear 100 optimistic voices, you might not realize it, but on the inside you start developing this fear of missing out and you start to think all these people are buying and making money. You might not actually consciously think that. But at some level, you start believing all these people are bullish and market is going up and they're all buying and recommending people to buy, and you're missing out in a way. I don't think that is useful for a trader. I think you need to ward off the noise and try to figure out a way in which you have some amount of a vacuum where you can think and make decisions. So I think that would be the first recommendation to a trader. Like, don't let your mind space get too chaotic, thinking who's doing what. Even if it's not consciously, subconsciously, I don't think that helps. Second thing, remember that, India is a cog in a wheel which is much larger. We have become so correlated with the West and with the rest of the world that what happens there really affects us. I might be wrong and this might not be 100% accurate, but one could say that a large part of why we have rallied as much is because of how much the Federal Reserve has printed and how much money has percolated down into emerging economies. And there are so many different things which are changing across the world. You can't really process all that information accurately, but I think it's important to know that what will happen in stock markets tomorrow is a factor of all of that. And bear that in mind when you think, you invest in something. If it works out, if it does not work out, is not a factor of that company alone, but a factor of what's happening in the world at large. I feel like traders do not spend enough time. The third thing, they don't spend enough time looking at macro trends. We spend maybe too much time thinking about what will happen next week or next month or next quarter ka result. I think it's important to make sure the companies which we are bullish on and the companies which we are bearish on are in bull or bear cycles from a long-term perspective.
Trend.
I would not say trend of price, but I would say trend of sector. If you believe climate change is real, if you believe the amount of carbon we put in the universe is a problem, if you feel renewable energy has a optimistic outlook in the next 10 years, immaterial of what you're doing daily. Like one day you might be shorting, the other day you might be going long. But it's very important to establish you're going long in companies in the renewable sector. Is that because you're bullish about it in 10 years, or do you believe the industry does not have much legs beyond a certain point of time? I think on the converse, you could make the same thing for companies which are refiners or upstream oil companies or oil marketing companies. You can have the opposite narrative for that. But be short even intraday in what you want to be short long term, and be long intraday in what you want to be long term.
अमेजिंग पॉइंट. इसमें आपने जो सेकंड पॉइंट बोला था अबाउट लिक्विडिटी, आई थिंक यू मेंशन इट वेरी राइटली. जो हमारे 2008 सब प्राइम क्राइसिस के समय पे जो लिक्विडिटी इन्फ्यूज हुई थी, ऑलमोस्ट उसकी 1.5 से 1.7x वाज इन्फ्यूज दिस टाइम. सो दैट वाज अ बिग फिगर. So next big question is trading versus investing. I know that you must have answered it 100 times, but
Correct.
I want this time want you to answer it from perspective of next 5 years.
Because I feel markets are expensive. If you were sitting at 8,000 Nifty, I would have said investing. If I had foresight, which I don't. But let me just wager a guess and say, when markets are cheaper, investing starts to work. When markets are expensive, trading works.
So in trading, right now, most of the people are focusing on technical. But you are saying that with technical, you have to combine fundamentals, you have to combine macro factors, and you have to have bigger picture in mind.
See, that is my recipe for my dish, right? You have to build your own recipe. But like I said, I don't even know if all this works. It might all be placebo, where my conditions, my conditioning in the time that I've been in the market has made me think they work. So they might have worked to a certain extent in the last 15 years. And based on that, today I can sit here and tell you they work. But does that mean they will work in the next 5-10 years? Probably not. You'll have to figure out what that is and then make that your recipe.
Very true. As rightly said, that everything works in this market. You have to see that what works best for you.
Correct.
So next question is about algo trading.
Right.
We have decided that we have to be we have to learn trading. But should we put a lot of heat on algo trading and algos?
See, it depends on what you're doing. If you have a latency related strategy, by latency I mean you're sending 5,000 orders a day, and the order has to be executed in a certain fraction of a second, and that time makes a significant difference. Algos make sense. Like you were telling, you're a swing trader. If you are going to place an order every 2 days, or if you're going to place 20 orders every 2 days, I don't know how much of an edge an algorithm will give to you in terms of execution, from the execution lens. From the lens of research and discipline, maybe it helps. Maybe if you have to click that button yourself, albeit like twice in a day or whatever, if you're going to let emotions sway you at that time into thinking, nahi, market fell 30 points in the last 5 minutes, let me do it after 10 minutes, 15 minutes, stuff like that. If you're doing it for the lack of that discipline or for not wanting to take that chance, then it might work as well. But I feel like, see, anything which has a little bit of complexity in the market is sold as the holy grail in a way. See, algorithm is it's just a fancy word for saying, you're getting the system to do something that you would have done yourself, right? You're saying, I'll give you an example. Like we were talking about technical analysis. Let's say you trade 20, 50 moving day crossovers. Okay, you buy the upward crossover, you exit on the downward crossovers. Now, you can call it an algorithm, you can program it in like 5 different ways with stop losses and how it will book profits and all of that. But practically, it is someone, executing what you're telling them to do. Like right now, you might call a dealer and tell him what to do. That is telling a computer what to do. So
right now we open Zerodha app and tell him what to do.
Correct. Yeah. I'm sure pretty soon you'll be able to write an algorithm on the Zerodha app and do it from there. I think Streak guys have done a fairly decent job with that. But you have to ask yourself what the underlying logic is, and then figure out if proficiency in execution or allowing you not to waver in your preset decisions is an advantage.
First book on investing जो आपने पढ़ी थी, or maybe trading.
First book I read, maybe Market Wizards. Yeah.
And 3 books which are must read.
ऐसे कुछ नहीं यार. I feel like I don't like to read what comes out today because the current bestsellers often do not remain bestsellers 10 years down the line. I like to read historically what has sold. It could be even in the 50s, 60s, 70s, whenever, because stock markets, more than many other things, are very cyclical. What worked today will not work tomorrow, but will work day after tomorrow or like 1 week later. So in terms of, Market Wizards and all are like fiction, right? They're
Stories,
it's
interesting
about,
stories, and you'll enjoy it.
I remember Reminiscence of a Stock
Operator,
a little more theory would be that Benjamin Graham's The Intelligent Investor. So to be fair, I used to read a lot of books on the stock market. I stopped maybe 5-6 saal pehle. I like philosophy, psychology and history. And in the last few years, I've probably read books around that. Yeah, not around stock markets. Somehow there is a intersection there. I feel like it's strange, but I feel like reading about psychology is better than reading about the stock markets to work in the stock markets.
Very interesting. So stock market is all about economics, and economics is all about people, and people are all about psychology.
In a way.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Any series on stock market or book which you have, movie you recommend?
I love that
Big Short?
Harshad Mehta's
Scam. You have seen it?
I loved it. I thought whoever directed it did an incredible job.
Any movie?
I mean, not that anyone should try and emulate Wolf of Wall Street because of all the chaotic nonsense.
But it was fun.
It was fun. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, if I talk about life, क्या next goals?
बदलते रहते हैं यार. Like, it's funny. People start assuming you're more sorted than you actually are when they don't know you. Like now we have met. You hang out with me for a bit. You'll be like, इसमें ये flaw है, वो है, this is good, that is bad. So what I think I want from life is constantly changing. At some level, I know I want peace of mind, but the path I choose is not necessarily always walking towards that. Now, it wouldn't be right for me to say my endeavor is to achieve peace of mind, but I'm going to try 5 new businesses and spend all of my time doing it, because then I'm taking away from my own goal. So I would say it's a moving goal post, and it's not moving from here to here. It's moving in circles and in 3 dimensions, and basically, to summarize, I would say confusion. Yeah.
So, True Beacon. क्या फोकस उस पे, क्या प्लान है?
देखो, like market में there are, when I looked at asset managers, there were many leakages, right?
Like
if I was an investor, I would have to pay a distributor, I would have to pay the fund manager money. If I made money, if I did not make money, some people charge brokerage and a lot of cost associated with it. And there were lock-in periods. You can't take out your money when you want. True Beacon, very simply, is an attempt to like remove all of those inefficiencies. Will the company ever make money? Will it be successful? Will it not be successful? I don't know. Will it perform better than other funds in the market? I don't know. We're a very conservative fund. We're always hedged. Right now, we're hedged 50%. So we are the place where we are not trying to say ki markets will go up 20%, we'll make you 30%. We are trying to say if the markets go up 10, we'll make 6. If the markets go down 10, we'll lose 4. That is what we are attempting to do. So risk-adjusted rewards are a big thing for us. And while we are attempting to get that return profile, we have kind of removed the middleman, the distributor, the brokerage, the fees.
Just like you did it on Zerodha.
Correct. We've removed all the nonsense. So I like the product. If I were an investor, and I saw 3 competing funds, one where somebody is charging 3% a year if I make money or do not make money. And here is this fund which is only charging if I make money after I've made money. I would probably lean in this direction.
That
being
is also
said,
10% of the profits,
yeah,
right?
that's also just 10% carrying. So it's a very cheap, efficient, transparent product. But the idea is not to oversell it, to push it, whatever. Like, very savvy niche investors come there. If they're happy, they tell their friends over time. And we'll see how it goes. But luckily, by virtue of having gotten lucky in other stuff in life, we can kind of take that
The risk.
We can say, acha, I mean, we might be so cheap that we won't make money for 5-10 years, but I think something like this is needed, so we can do it.
No, but I like that point when you said, no, that your main focus is on loss.
Right.
And Indian mentality is also loss aversion. They are not risk averse.
Everybody in the world.
Achha, everyone. Okay. So, any which ways, you are conservative. There is a new asset class, NFT, cryptos, which are emerging right now.
Right.
I know that you are conservative, but if there's an investor who want to take a bet on it, what's your opinion on that?
To be fair, like considering when we are doing this interview, like it is very hard for a new investor to fund a crypto wallet in India today and buy most of what you're talking about. Especially after M-Swipe, the last guy kind of shut down 10-15 days ago. For the people who already have crypto and who have money in crypto wallets, मेरे ख्याल से, whatever is the flavor of the season, you should avoid. Like, it doesn't matter if it's crypto, NFT, Adani Group companies today or whatever. Like, you turn on the news.
And it's not a recommendation, by the way.
No, not at all. Not at all. Whatever is in the news too much, stay away from it. Like, turn on the news and, like, if you were to, like, write some kind of a program to record how much time is spent on speaking about what, if they're speaking too much about a certain group of companies or a certain product, avoid it. I would say the same for NFTs. I believe in the use case for the metaverse. I mean, a very simple use case could be, we're doing this session right now and we had to travel and you had to take a flight and all of that. Now, if the same experience could somehow be created on a digital platform and save us that trouble, outside of having the same amount of efficiency that we have now, it's good for the world. So much carbon that got expended did not have to be done. You save a lot of time. In that way, I see the use case for the metaverse, but how that will manifest is a tough one to call.
लेकिन जैसे अभी क्रिप्टोस पे मना कर दिया है बाय करने के लिए, there are a lot of restrictions which are there. And होता क्या है, जब कोई restrict करता है हमें, we want to do that stuff. मना क्यों किया? So what to do? How to control that emotion?
As an Indian citizen, considering how the rules are today, you're probably wise by not doing it. You can find a twisted way of doing it. But think of it this way. Whatever twisted way you figure out to buy cryptos and like trade in NFTs and all of that, if it were to work out for you and you make a lot of money doing that, then somebody will go after you. Right? Yeah. So think of the end game. And you're better off, like focusing on a market which is more
regulated and more efficient.
Yeah.
Interesting. Any final word of advice? कि बेटा ये तो मान लेना और कुछ माने नहीं माने.
नहीं यार, I feel like everything in the stock markets are transient. What you think today, you'll think something else tomorrow, and that will constantly change. I think the key is to not to hold on to anything too much. The day you start sticking to a certain strategy, a certain school of thought, saying this is what works, and if you start to become so attached to it that you can't change, I think is bad for you. Always know that you could probably be wrong in whatever you're doing at that point of time, and look for noises of what could be changing and be willing to change. You'd rather change first and be an idiot than change last and lose everything.
Amazing. Thank you so much for doing this.